Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
In the time that it took for the intro to play, Brogan Rafferty was called up and sent down 4 more times, believe it or not.
Good for him.
He's
collected 6 hours of an NHL salary.
The mileage must be insane that he's picking up. He's just in that little funk right now. Teams have those players, right, where they don't want to call anyone up to do anything other than sit in the press box. And so Rafferty just fits that bill. They're not going to be calling up Edvinsson to do that. They want him playing games, although he's hurt right now. And you just see their name. If you go to their cap friendly page, any team, you'll see one guy like up and down a million different times. I wonder if the NHL will ever change that. But anyhow, Brogan Rafferty, I hope you have some podcasts you like to listen to, because quite a bit of driving. If he's actually in the car for all those times, which who's to say that that's actually the case.
He just takes his helicopter.
Yeah.
Grand Rapids to Detroit.
You know those AHL salaries, right? It's private helicopter, at least a couple of helipads at your estate, that kind of thing.
Sounds about right.
Wrong sport, I think. There's no live NHL.
Not yet.
Not yet. And that might not actually be a joke. Give us 10 years. We'll see where we're at. That might be Utah's way into the league.
They're going to be...
Would Evan accept Utah into his league is what I'm wondering.
Anyhow, welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. We're here to talk to you about all things Detroit Red Wings hockey, the world of the NHL, and lots more. I am one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
I'm Brad Crisco.
And I'm Evan.
On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, we're going to be talking to you about the 2 Detroit Red Wings games since the last time we spoke. One of them we were very nervous about because it was Detroit versus Tampa Bay, and not just Detroit versus Tampa Bay in the NHL, it was Detroit versus Tampa Bay in the NFL as well. So we were hesitant to speak too confidently about those games, and we were rewarded. Brad, you, Newsy, everyone else who's a Bills fan, my condolences. We don't have to talk about it beyond that. We're going to be talking about the Red Wings win against Tampa Bay and then their loss against Dallas last night. A couple of their storylines with the Red Wings, the Rasmussen-Copp Fischer line being kind of quietly very, very good for them. The power play, what's gone well, what's gone poorly, etc. We're going to be talking about NHL news, which was a buzz today. First, the Hockey Canada probe, which has moved forward, and there are presumptive charges coming within the next little while here with 5 or so players implicated, with nothing confirmed quite yet. We're going to be talking about the Utah, Salt Lake City trying to break into the NHL and requesting an expansion process in the NHL, basically using this to press on the Arizona Coyotes. Corey Perry has been signed by the Edmonton Oilers, and lots more before overtime. Before all that, I want to let you know that Saturday, March 2nd against the Florida Panthers is Winged Wheel Podcast Night at the LCA. What that is a partnered event between us, the Winged Wheel Podcast, and the Detroit Red Wings, where we host a live episode of the show at Little Caesars Arena before the Red Wings game. When you get tickets, you don't only get access to that event, you also get access, of course, to the Red Wings game at a discounted rate. You get a special co-branded Detroit Red Wings and Winged Wheel Podcast cap. It's limited edition. We're only allowed to give them away at that game. There's going to be a special guest at the live episode, and his name is Ken Daniels, and there's going to be some more people there as well. There's going to be an opportunity to buy food and drinks. A portion of the proceeds from every ticket sold will benefit the Jamie Daniels Foundation, which is really the reason we're doing this whole thing. And your game tickets, they're going to bring you into special Winged Wheel Podcast sections. So whether it be lower bowl, upper bowl, or even in the gondola, which is the same view that Ken and Meg call the games from, you're going to be sitting with Winged Wheel Podcast listeners, and you might even spot myself, Brad, or Evan out there. So go to the link in the description. Saturday, March 2nd against the Florida Panthers. Get your tickets today. Only the first 400 tickets get the special co-branded Detroit Red Wings and Winged Wheel Podcast hat. So link in the description or type wingedwheelpodcast.com/Red Wings into your browser. Again, only first 400 tickets get the cap. All right. The Red Wings played Tampa Bay, and they followed in lockstep with the Lions, who beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win a second playoff game in a million years. So the city of Detroit was already incredibly hyped. Little Caesars Arena was flooded with Honolulu blue, which was very, very cool to see. And I think everyone was just energized by that. And Detroit ended up winning it's kind of always like this. If you're going to beat Tampa Bay, you're not going to score much, but they ended up winning a 2-1 game against Vasilevskiy and the Lightning. So it was Detroit beats Tampa Day, absolutely. And I think we should be making that a holiday moving forward based on the gravity of that day.
It's certainly something that couldn't have happened that often in sports history.
No.
Same city beats the same city, back to back, across the street from each other. That the circumstances to have that even align as a possibility, let alone it actually follows through.
It's crazy. Sports are pretty poetic sometimes. And it's not like Detroit and Tampa Bay as cities have had like massive sports rivalries that transcend eras. Like I think the Red Wings and the Lightning have hated each other in the past, but not like this. But it's pretty cool for both teams to be visiting at the same time and for both of them to be beaten by Detroit.
That is very cool.
Yeah. That part I was fond of.
Didn't see a lot of Tampa Bay fans there. Area of champions, my ass.
So first off, I'm going to be wearing this Lions hat until, the end of the playoffs, whatever that is. But the way I feel as a Lions fan is that this is house money at this point. But I can't even tell you how I feel as a Lions fan right now. I think Lions fans, it feels surreal to know that if they win one more game, they're in the Super Bowl. I was explaining this to Mel. I was like, at the start of the season, you look at, the Patriots any given year or, the Rams or whoever, and you're like, oh, I wonder if they'll go to the Super Bowl. It doesn't even, at the start of a season, you don't even think about that as a possibility for the
You have
Lions.
imposter syndrome.
Yes. Yeah. So, already thrilled. Anyhow, the Red Wings. Overall, I mean, Vasilevskiy was a freak that game, but Detroit brought it to Tampa Bay, and if they didn't shoot enough against Carolina, they definitely got the message and they came out firing. They were heavily out shooting Tampa Bay, especially through the first half of the game there. Like they understood what they did wrong against Carolina and they remedied that quick.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes the correct solution is the simplest solution. We were making fun of ourselves in overtime of last episode saying, here we are, this hockey podcast with deep insights. Hit more, shoot more, be good.
Pretty much.
Well, I'll be damned. It worked.
It worked. The game opened with Tampa Bay scoring. It was a Victor Hedman shot. That was one of those plays where you just see the talent of another team on display. What Kucherov did on that play, the give and go with Hedman cutting across the ice to pull the play towards him and then making that pass. Like
you do that in like beer league, not in professional hockey.
I'd be amazed if you have teammates that good in beer league.
I do not. I've heard you can do this in beer league. Not that I've seen it with my own eyes.
Kucherov is, and this is going to sound silly because of how many times he's been near or at the top of NHL scoring, but he really is underrated in the superstar conversations. Like McDavid, obviously, Matthews, McKinnon. Kucherov's name isn't in there enough.
He has more 3-point games than 0-point games this season.
He's a freak. There are a few freaks in the NHL, and at least a couple of them live on Tampa Bay, and he's one of them.
The NHL has this thing, though, where they don't like rewarding the a-holes.
No, and he's not fun to play against.
No, he is a lot more Brad Marchand than Sidney Crosby. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, but hey, it works for Tampa Bay. Anyhow, the Red Wings tied it. End of the first period. Lucas Raymond shot from the high slot, and the puck squeaked through Vasilevskiy. It was kind of an unlikely goal to see that happen too often, but he managed to get it through, and that was key for Detroit to score at the end of the period there. First of all, to know that Vasilevskiy can bleed, that you can even get the puck through, that very much like it's good for a confidence of a team who's trying to get through that brick wall, because that guy's just insane to play against. And in the second period, Daniel Sprong on the breakaway made no mistake. He went low glove on the breakaway on Vasilevskiy, celebrated. You saw him pointing upwards later on, and I think Ken Daniels said on the broadcast the next game that he was pointing at Patrick Kane, who told him go low glove on Vasilevskiy. So Patrick Kane, even from the IR, is giving Detroit a boost.
Daniel Sprong pointing to a higher power.
An injured 35-year-old Patrick Kane up in the press box.
We know what he said.
Yeah. And the Red Wings end up winning the game. Again, they outshot Tampa Bay. That was put Larkin on an 8-game point streak. Lyon was near perfect again, stopped 28 of 29 shots. most importantly, Detroit had a huge divisional win against Tampa Bay, and those two are going to be battling it out for the rest of the season. At least Detroit hopes, in terms of a potential wild card or playoff spot. And
what a wacky statement on both ends of that spectrum.
Yeah. It could be a divisional seed that they're competing for, depending on how Detroit holds on here. Like,
the amount of standing swaps between the Leafs, Lightning, and Red Wings over the last 7 to 10 days is truly something nobody expected at any point this year.
Detroit is making the most of games even when they play poorly, and Tampa Bay is definitely on the other side of their, however long dominance, and Toronto's doing God knows what Toronto's doing, because they shouldn't be this bad.
No, but hey,
you'll take it.
They're getting Ryan Reeves back now.
Loose knees, Ryan Reeves.
The Leafs are playing one of their makeup games to catch up to the Red Wings in games played tonight. They have to play Winnipeg.
Good luck.
Not too much, though.
That statement by Ryan Reeves, very quickly, that was so funny.
He knew what he was doing.
No, I mean the loose knees one. Him complaining about being on IR, we'll get to that later, but him saying he has loose knees, and if he gets out of bed too aggressively, his knees pop out. I was like,
what is he? Who's he, Lieutenant Dan? Like, I don't understand.
I read that out to Mel, and she's like, is that a sports thing? I'm like, no, loose knees, that's not, you don't hear that all the time. That's not good.
That can't be good.
Your knees pop out. If you don't wear knee braces in practice, your knees pop out. That's not a healthy man.
It's certainly not normal.
When you say I've torn my knees so many times, like, not even a specific ligament, just your whole knee.
Just all of my knees.
It's a minefield.
It's actually only held together by the skin.
The skin and the knee braces, that's it.
Thank God for shin pads, I suppose.
Oh, my God. Anyhow, that was Detroit's win. One against Tampa Bay, and a good bounce back compared to the Carolina game. And then last night they had the Dallas Stars, and that was a different one.
Let's talk about whiplash again.
Are you talking about from Tampa to Dallas, or from the first period to the second period?
It all depends on your lens you're using, because it all applies.
I wiped off the lens as I was watching the second period, because Detroit was a combination of Detroit and Dallas. And let's start with the game. Jamie Benn opened scoring, and we're all worse off for it. And then Perron scored on the power play, and then DeBrincat scored on the power play. Perron's goal was a snipe. Credit to him. I think he's been showing a lot more recently. Despite limitations to his skating or whatever, similar storylines to last year, where he's finding a way to be effective when Detroit needs him to, either on the power play or on the top line. He's contributing there. That was his 10th goal of the season. Detroit's second power play, Alex DeBrincat. Great setup by Daniel Sprong. Sprong stole the puck, went behind the net, kind of did a little half spin pass to DeBrincat, who made no mistake and placed a perfect shot. And we were just talking about DeBrincat's kind of goal slump and how streaky he is. And Prashanth put out a really great graphic on visualizing how his goals have come in bunches and how long the streakiness has been. Good to see him net his 18th. So Detroit went into the second period with a 2-1 lead. And then Dallas scored 4 times in the second period. And all of a sudden it was 5-2.
And how many did Detroit score?
0.
That's not good.
It was a combination of Dallas showing off why they're a cup competitive team. I got some pushback on this last night, but I really do feel passionate that Dallas is just, that was a clinical performance by them, because Detroit has played that poorly in other games where they've either not been punished that bad or they've even ended up winning. But they did that against a cup competitive team and one who was ready, and Dallas made them pay every single time.
What the hell could people have given you pushback on for that?
Well, they said it was more that Detroit was bad, not that Dallas is so good. I'm like, no. It's a combination of both. Dallas that's a good team, man.
Yeah, Detroit played worse than that against San Jose and still won somehow.
That's what I'm talking about. You can get away with playing like that against some teams in the league, but you can't do that for too many minutes against the Dallas Stars.
Red Wings can do it for a full game against San Jose, but they cannot do it for a period against Dallas, as we witnessed yesterday.
Detroit was playing sloppy turnovers, which it's been creeping into their game more and more recently. But the turnovers were sloppy, careless with the puck, just kind of no accountability in their play, and it all snowballed. We were talking before the episode, Evan. you don't see Derek Lalonde call too many timeouts, and I'm not sure why. Like that period was, I think, ripe for one, unless he called one and I missed it. But he just generally doesn't, and it looked like that was a mental period for Detroit. It just got away from them.
Yeah, I don't know, and it's not like in the San Jose game where they gave up 3 goals in like a minute, when it's like you just need to call a timeout just to settle things down. The goals were kind of spread out, so it is tricky in finding your timing to call it, but you either got to call a timeout at some point in that second period and calm everybody down, or you go nuclear on them and rip them a new asshole, if I'm allowed to say asshole on this podcast anymore. I don't know. You got to do one of the two, I think. The Red Wings haven't done or taken a lot of timeouts this season, but that's a whole nother topic of conversation. But yeah, rough second period, and it's hard to come out of a period like that with any sort of confidence.
And it felt like it sunk them. You almost thought for a second that Christian Fischer got one back on the board, but he was offside by a couple inches there, and so that came back. Christian Fischer, it was a great shot, and honestly, through that game, even through that terrible second period, they were talking in the broadcast, that was another continuation of Fischer-Rasmussen-Copp. Like, they were one of Detroit's best lines, and that game was another demonstration of it. And then you saw that Fischer goal, and you're like, oh, sweet. He got some life back into them, and then the offside review took it back. And it was the right call. It wasn't even, like, it was pretty black and white, albeit close. And then after that, you felt just so deflated. And then Detroit made it interesting, but it was too little too late. Like, I think they looked better in the third, to the point where you're like, yeah, that just goes to show that second period didn't need to be that bad. You understand a turnover happens from time to time, and Dallas is a really good team, so they'll make you pay for it, but not to the degree that they kind of messed up that second period. It ended up being a 5-4 game. After the Fischer non-goal, though, Larkin on Detroit's third power play scored. Lucas Raymond had a really smart setup where he kind of pulled the play towards him and passed the puck back to Larkin in the slot, who made no mistake. And Larkin, that's a 9-game point streak for him now, and I don't think he's been playing to his standards his best hockey. Like, he's been producing, but also the giveaways have been kind of off his stick. He looks a little off. I wonder if there's an injury there or something. But even when Larkin's having an off little stretch here, he's on a 9-game point streak, which is nice. And then JT Compher made it interesting at the end, where Detroit scored with the empty net, and they had about 3 minutes after that to try to tie the game. Ultimately, they came up short. Dallas did what they needed to do. Even with a clearing the puck over the glass penalty, Dallas was able to kind of keep Detroit away. But Detroit hung in there, which has been the storyline all season. But without that one period, even if you take away 10 minutes of that period where they completely collapsed, that could have been another stolen result for Detroit.
2 thoughts here first. One, I love how when you brought up the offside review, you didn't even look at me and did not stop talking for a solid 2 minutes so that I couldn't jump in there. To surprise you, I'm okay with that one. It took him 10 seconds to review.
Even the 480p cameras could see that one was offside.
If the review is that quick, that's how it's supposed to work. That's what it's there for. Fine with it. But yeah, this is the problem with the Red Wings this year. We've seen them be great. We've seen them be bad. And outside of December, it doesn't seem like they can do either of them consistently, most of the time within the same 60-minute game.
Experienced Red Wings hockey.
You know what? I will say, in the broader view, that's the kind of thing that takes a longer time to develop. Like,
consistency is the most difficult thing as a professional athlete and as a collective team.
100%.
But that also comes with talent. And I know we state the obvious with this team all the time in that regard, but you have a lot of guys punching above their weight for Detroit this year, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not using that as a negative connotation here, but when you have guys overperforming expectation, well, for stretches, they're going to play to expectation or below, in which case this team can't compete. You look what you're getting out of Daniel Sprong this year. I think we knew he'd be good, but he gets on these heaters. DeBrincat's a very streaky player, and when he's on a heater, you're going, JT Compher's been better than expected. And I can go down and down the list and keep rattling off guys like that, but when you have a second period where all of them are invisible and they don't control the puck, and then they leave this patchwork defense to their own devices for a full period.
Yeah.
It's what's going to happen. I don't think this team's constructed to be consistent. I don't think they can. I think all of us at this table and almost everybody listening right now would agree. Based on the way they've played this year, they should not be as high in the standings as they are. They've had some good fortune, whether that be great goaltending from Lions, some good shooting percentages. But overall, they've played better than expectation.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify. Like they've earned their way to where they are, and it's better than what you would expect based on what they have.
Exactly. And both things can be true. Have they played better than we thought they would be this year? Yes. Have they gotten luckier than they should have this year? Also, yes. And that's why when we joke about they're going toe-to-toe with Tampa and Toronto in the standings right now, it's actually happening. That's not even a joke. That is what's happening right now.
Yeah. Detroit's power play. Like they went 3 for 4 that game, and the fourth one was the end of the game where it was all hands on deck for Dallas to just get through in regulation. At one point they were 3 for 3, and Detroit is now a top 10 power play team. They're at 23%. I think they mentioned on the broadcast it was 27 power play goals in their last 32 games. Like this is a team whose power play has been potent. And, you know, I mentioned before Perron chipping in. Larkin, even when he's playing poorly, is able to contribute there. If DeBrincat can get going and use this to rally some momentum. He doesn't need to be scoring every game, but with some kind of consistency. And even you saw his goal, like that was a shooter's shot. It was a very smartly placed shot, and his ability to kind of move in tighter in the offensive zone. Which goal was it where he kind of quickly deked around a guy? It was Confer's. He quickly deked around a guy to set Confer up for that goal in front, or get the shot off that Confer buried in front. DeBrincat, like that, when we talk about the Red Wings being able to play better even than they are now, DeBrincat, him showing that off more is part of that in my mind.
Yeah, the Wings have a high shooting percentage this year, but that's because they've got better shooters than they had last year. DeBrincat being the forefront of that. When you have elite shooting talent, it's not enough to be a good shooter. Look at what's happened with Patrick Laine over the years. You can have the best shot in the league, but if you never get open and you never present yourself as a passing threat, it's easy to stop you. And like I said, we had 2 instances in this game alone where DeBrincat did what he was supposed to do, and it yielded a shot and a goal for him. And then on the next play, he made a play happen. It resulted in a shot, and it didn't get him a goal, but it still ended up in the net.
Yeah. Let's talk about Rasmussen-Copp and Fischer. It's been a nice little run for that line. Energy, hard hitting, fourth, or bottom 6 checking line, however they're deployed. Like that is, they've had some really, really good results. Defensive assignments, obviously, they're not going to be scoring the lights out, but been like quietly really good for Detroit.
You don't have to think too hard to understand what that line's role, purpose, and style is going to be.
Yeah. But some appreciation to them. And I think it's been, anytime you can find a spot where Rasmussen really kind of meshes and is able to play his game, I think that's the most important part of it. Obviously, you want to get Copp in a place where he's able to contribute. I think Fischer's been good for what he's been asked to do all season, but Rasmussen especially, you fit him in as a really efficient cog in this team, and they tend to do well when you do that. Okay, so that's the Red Wings, their 2 games. All in all, with Dallas, like, yeah, the second period sucked. It was good that they made it interesting at the end. Someone said when we were talking about it after the game, there's no real shame in losing to Dallas. You do hope that they could have done without that second period, but overall, those games are going to happen. You're not lighting any alarm fires for that. Upcoming, Detroit has Philly on Thursday night at home and Vegas on Saturday night at home. We're going to be back with you on Monday, so our usual Sunday episode has been pushed to Monday because this weekend is Winged Wheel podcast night with the Grand Rapids Griffins, and so we're going to need time to get back from Grand Rapids on Sunday. We're also adopting a dog, not us, the podcast, although in essence you guys are like godparents to Abby already, so Tully will be no different.
You gotta now is the time to invest in Oscar Mayer stocks because it is $2 hot dogs on Friday night at the Grand Rapids Griffins game, and I'm going to put a dent in that supply.
Hold on. How am I just finding out about this?
No, we've talked about this
Have
before.
we? Was I here?
Is it every Friday night?
I've never been to Grand Rapids before, Evan. I don't know. But now my excitement level went from a 10 out of 10 to a 12 out of 10.
I'm clearly a glizzy connoisseur.
We're going to have to roll you two back, all three of us, back into our cars to drive back home.
This is going to be dangerous for me because even though they're $2, Evan is going to consume an unholy amount. I am going to consume an unholy amount. Wait till you see what Hank does to this supply.
He's going to triple in size.
This is his favorite food.
Dude's rock, man.
Yeah, it's the best. I love hot dogs.
We can't wait. We have a list of restaurants, bars, spots to hit, breweries in Grand Rapids. So we're really, really excited, but can't wait to see you all there. So this usual weekend schedule is going to be just pushed out a day. So Sunday's episode is going to be moved to Monday, at which point we'll cover the Philly game and the Vegas game. So that is where Detroit is at right now. In the standings, it's much a similar picture to when we spoke last. Detroit is still in the mix for that wild card spot. Currently in the second wild card spot with Toronto right ahead of them at the time of recording. Jersey behind them has a better points percentage, and then the Islanders, Capitals, Penguins, etc. are all in the mix as well. So Detroit is still in that kind of a spot, and Tampa Bay is right ahead of them. Detroit, Toronto, and Tampa Bay is still, you're right, it sounds so weird.
Pittsburgh could really use some points.
They could.
They're getting easy goals at least.
Well, that's why they're going to trade Jake Ensel.
They might trade Evgeny Malkin after that last one.
They're really not happy with Evgeny Malkin in Pittsburgh right now.
Because of that goal or because of his play?
Just that I saw a lot of that play as a microcosm of Evgeny Malkin's on one of those I don't care years. You know how he alternates?
Yeah.
Okay. How can you be like that when you can watch
talented.
Sidney Crosby doing what he's doing right now?
Can I ask you guys about that goal? Am I wrong by saying that I think it was Malkin's screw up? I believe that.
Uh-huh.
Letang should not have made that pass.
No, absolutely not. You don't make that pass because an idiot might do an idiot thing.
Yes.
And I'm not calling Malkin an idiot. I just assume everybody is an idiot until proven otherwise.
Your net's empty. Back passes towards your own net, you're going to end up on highlight of the night, not for a good reason.
Like, I've had coaches tell me straight up, if we are on a delayed penalty and you have the puck in the offensive zone, the blue line's not an option unless it's right up the boards.
Yeah, I've been told the same thing. Like, don't call for a pass at the blue line because if that careens past you or gets, it bumps off your stick or anything, it's going to be ugly.
Yeah, 100%. You have one defenseman glued to the boards to keep any emergency rim arounds to keep the cycle going.
Mm-hmm.
The other defenseman might as well change or go to the front of the net because he ain't getting the puck.
To clarify what happened here, Pittsburgh had a delayed penalty call in their favor. Letang was trying to make a decision with the puck. He was being pressured by the Coyotes player in his own zone. He saw Malkin out of the corner of his eye. Malkin was floating from just in front of the net to the side to in front of the net. Letang did a quick back pass to no-look back pass to Malkin.
It's worth noting, this was maybe a 5-foot pass.
Yeah, Malkin was caught off guard by it or just...
No, he just reached out with one hand very casually to corral it back.
Pulled it into the path of the net, fumbled the puck, and the puck went in their own net.
Yeah, Letang's pass was going to miss the net. That's the funniest part of this all.
Yeah, it was... That's rough, man.
Against the Coyotes, too.
Yeah.
I don't know why that just makes it worse because you're in that arena playing that team.
It's the mullet experience, man. It's the pressure of Mullet Arena getting onto them.
That's right.
How are you
all 3,000 people screaming.
Is it? Yeah. How are you going to threaten to relocate them when they affect the other team to that degree where they're scoring on their own net?
Didn't they have a crazy good home record last year? Last year at the Mullet?
They have a good home record this year again, too.
Arizona is people don't appreciate how good of a team they actually are based on what expectations were.
Oh, yeah. If they were a stock, you'd be buying.
Yeah. Anyhow, a little bit more on the Red Wings. Sean Shapiro put out an article on Shap Shots, and it was about Detroit and their ability to practice, and that maybe being why January has started off a lot better than what December was for Detroit. And it's a concept we've talked about a little bit in the past, where the grind, either a road trip or how Sweden messed things up in terms of Detroit's schedule or anything like that. Detroit was basically like boom, 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 game, travel. Not terribly dissimilar than other teams, but they felt that their inability to practice is why they got so, and not in a good way, loose and off. And it's part of why December was so bad. So Derek Lalonde mentioned that January being able to practice more is how you were able to tighten things up, work on your game, special teams, etc. It makes sense. It's like overly simplistic. Like what we talked about before, Brad, shoot more, the puck was more likely to go in. Like you boil it down, it seems almost stupid. You're able to practice more, you're going to be better.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not even necessarily establishing systems or anything like that, because even with no December practices, I don't care what the Red Wings are running, like a 1-2-2, a 2-1-2, a man-to-man D zone, a zone D zone coverage. That is all firmly established in their heads. But what was happening in December and likely led to this is Lalonde finally got a real good look at what wasn't working in the systems and did not have the ability to adjust.
Yeah.
And then January came around. All right, so here's where we're having success. Here's what's not working. Let's tweak this. Let's tweak that. Let's tweak this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that would be a huge, if I'm being honest, because if the team was forgetting their regular systems and their basic systems after like 3 months of training camp and practices, we got bigger problems than not practicing. So
something else to point out is that not every team practices a lot or on a regular schedule. A lot of it has to do with rest, like 82 games in this condensed of a season. It's tough to do. So a lot of teams, they might have optional skates, but in terms of full-fledged practices and stuff, you might find teams that don't do much of anything at all. I'll link to Sean's article in the description so you can read more in depth. And I think that might be a privilege for more, like sometimes it's a personal preference thing for coaches, but it might be a privilege more for organizations who have guys who've been there for a long time and they've been established as a, near on dynasty for a long time. If you have, for example, a Tampa Bay type or a Pittsburgh type where those guys have been playing together for a while, you might not need the practice. You're better off with the rest. You could do with the age of your guys. But if you're a team who's trying to find their identity and be good consistently for the first time in this era, it's not likely that you're going to get that way without, a lot of grinding to kind of establish who you are before it becomes muscle memory and automatic.
Yeah, the Red Wings need the time, especially when you're slumping. You really want the practice time to really slow things down at practice and really work through things. When you don't have that time, it just continues to snowball and you can't get yourself out of that funk. Like you can't make those changes in a video session or just talking through it. It's impossible. You have to practice through them.
Anyways, cool to read. So Detroit, Tampa Bay, that was great. Dallas, kind of bad and then kind of fun. So at least they hung in there for that one. And they have the 2 games upcoming and we'll be back with you. Let's jump into NHL news now.
All of it good.
Yeah. Wow.
Super positive day.
What a morning. So folks might know of the Hockey Canada investigation based on the 2018 World Junior team. There were allegations of sexual assault based on certain members of that team. This has been ongoing forever. Like we've been talking about this for a long, long time. And to the point where some people were wondering if the investigation was even going to come to any kind of fruitful end in terms of illuminating a little bit more of what happened, or if there's any justice to be served, whether that was going to happen. The investigation at points looked like it fizzled away. At points, it looked like it was ready to be kind of announced and things were really going to get moving. Anyhow, there was an announcement that 5 members from Canada's 2018 World Junior team have been told to surrender to London, Ontario police. They are allegedly facing sexual assault charges. Related, certain members of that 2018 team have been granted leaves from their NHL teams or professional hockey teams. The reasons weren't disclosed, and I know a lot of people want the NHL and the NHL teams to comment officially on it, but you can understand why they're legally bound to say or not say what the leaves are for. Anyhow, Carter Hart, Philly goaltender, was the one who really got people buzzing that this might be something that was happening with the investigation. So his leave was announced. Dylan Dubé out of Calgary, Alex Formenton, former Ottawa Senator, currently playing over in Europe, was granted a leave from his team. Michael McLeod and Cal Foote out of New Jersey. So those are the names that people are linking to this. You obviously can't say anything for certain until charges are pressed. Maybe by the time you're listening to this, more has come out. The London police said They're not able to give an update right now, but they plan on a press conference based on obviously the extreme amount of public interest in this on February 5th. So again, it's not that things are going to get solved or eliminated overnight here, but the investigation seems to be moving forward. As usual, we're not going to speculate without knowing the details, and with any kind of official police investigation, this is just kind of a wait and see scenario. But this is really, really significant. Like NHL players have left their teams as part of this.
Depending on how this turns out, NHL careers could be over.
Yep. You can't guess as to how anything's going to turn out.
Yeah, because the NHL apparently was doing their own investigation as well. And, there's two sides of this coin to remember. On the, legal side, presumption of innocence until proven guilty. So the NHL likely can't do anything and won't do anything until they know the outcome of this process. But it's also important to remember that in the initial allegation, it was 8 or 9 players, and it seems they only had enough evidence to charge 5.
Yeah.
Which is, read into that whatever you want, but it's worth mentioning.
So that's it's been a long time kind of coming in terms of we've literally been seeing this playing out in slow motion for years now. This was a pretty significant day. Something else that happened this morning, and I'm going to explain a little bit of a timeline. So this news was coming out slowly over the last day or so, and then this morning it was announced that the 5 team members were asked to surrender to police. Funny enough, this morning, Utah and the organizations that control the major sports there, all belonging to Ryan Smith, who's going to be one of the next owners of an NHL team, very buddy with the NHL. They put out a statement asking the NHL to open up their expansion process and that they want to bring hockey to Salt Lake City, et cetera, et cetera. This isn't a new thing. They've wanted this for a long time. It's been practically public knowledge. The timing of it, though, within like an hour of everything flowing out this morning.
17 minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And then within the hour, I think within like 40-ish minutes, the NHL had a prepared statement in response to the Salt Lake City thing. And I thought, wow, the NHL, who's famously reserved.
Couldn't pencil David Perron in under an hour?
Oh my God, I was wondering where that was going.
They had a prepared they had a statement in response to a statement, all in the public view. Now, the implication here that I'm making, I'm going to state it plainly, is that the NHL ran a big news story that is either neutral to positive to distract from the fact that they have literal NHL players who are maybe submitting themselves to police for sexual assault charges. That is bad press. It's not that it's the NHL's fault. This is a Hockey Canada problem mainly, but that's bad press, and so they're running good press to try to drown it out. The timing of it was just so obtuse. The NHL and other people have said the NHL had this press kind of announcement planned for a week because it's kind of a pressure situation in Arizona, and we'll talk about the details in a minute here. Whether it was convenient or planned, the NHL, in my opinion, released that this morning to try to run some good PR. And I thought, why even do that? This is it's not even like it's a Hockey Canada issue. I get why they were doing it. The answer is
because everything percolates back up to the NHL.
It does. And that's the answer. And it's not about the people who are tuned into every single thing happening in the hockey world. It's not about us. It's about casual fans. Because if casual fans look up NHL that day and the news is just as much about possibly an expansion team in a major U.S. metropolitan market as much as it is about this Hockey Canada thing, that's what the NHL wants. They know all of the diehard fans are going to see right through it. But it still left a sour taste in your mouth.
Oh, 100%. But if there's anything Gary Bettman is known for, it's really having his pulse on what's going on in the NHL's fan base.
It's not an NHL exclusive tactic. You dump bad news on a Friday. You bury bad news in when people are really happy about something to the point where they're irrational. Like you dump bad news on over the holidays when people aren't paying attention. Like it happens in politics. It happens in sports. It happens in
It's why I buy Catherine wine before I tell her I have a golf trip coming up.
Do you actually do that?
Oh, you gotta grease the wheel a little bit.
How expensive of a bottle of wine?
Depends how far he's traveling.
Depends on length of trip, attendees, location, time of year. It's all a factor.
That's a good. I need to write that one down. But yeah, the NHL ran that, and so I understand why people were like, stop making a meal out of this. The two news stories can happen at the same time. That's absolutely true. I believe these are two independent, legitimate, completely different tone and substantial news stories. They are. Like even the Utah one, it is. But amidst everything that was happening this morning, for that to come out, you're just like, can this league just one time?
Just you're mad at them for doing that?
For running the
I wasn't surprised that they pushed that out at all.
I'm not surprised.
Surprise is different.
Yeah.
Not surprise. It just, but you know what? Even for running that, it felt stupid. Like it felt like feeble.
Well, what? This is am I playing devil's advocate here by saying, well, what else are they going to do?
Wait till at least 5 p.m.? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I suppose.
No, but the stupidity of this and why I tend to fall with Ryan on this they did this on purpose. It's in bad taste and it's plainly stupid. If you have something you really want to hype up, and I do want to talk about this as a serious story in a second about potential expansion to Utah, super exciting. 10 a.m. on a Wednesday probably isn't the time to release that news.
Yeah, crazy that they released that news. And anyways, people who are like, the hockey world doesn't stop just because this is happening and it's not on the NHL, and so they don't need to halt their news cycle. You're not objectively wrong. But when it's like the NHL almost flung themselves into the fire, in my mind. Is it the end of the world? No, just a little complaint I have about how the NHL kind of operates this way. You're not wrong, Evan. I shouldn't be surprised. And I'm probably being a whiny baby about it. It's a Hockey Canada issue. Anyhow. Let's talk about the expansion thing. I've said a million times on the show, I believe that no matter how close to the chest the NHL plays their cards, the $1 billion plus expansion fees are going to be too enticing for them to ignore. And my prediction to this day is that by 2030, they'll have plans for 36 teams. So 4 more. Utah, Salt Lake City, Ryan Smith as the owner, it seems to be inevitable. And it seems to be this one, maybe not an expansion thing, but a coordinated effort for the league to put pressure on Arizona, because what has been happening is, as Arizona still is playing in Mullet Arena, a college arena where they can fit like 15 people in there, there've been a various small news announcements here and there about, oh, we're bidding on this place, or this is where we think the arena is going to go, or it's going to be, in Phoenix or just outside of Phoenix, and Glendale for a second, but nothing's been solid. And the NHL apparently has asked Arizona to have an answer by the All-Star game. And it doesn't look like they're on track.
That's in weeks.
It's by the time this episode's over, the All-Star game's game.
This 3-year plan at Mullet Arena is half over.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can't blame the NHL for putting pressure on them. And it's in the form of, hey, Ryan Smith, our buddy, can you put out a whole Utah is really hot to trot for an NHL team so we can have an official statement to respond? And that way, Arizona can feel the heat, because it might be that you get an expansion team, or it might be that you get the Arizona Coyotes franchise.
Yeah, it's a no, other than the timing of the post, it's a no-lose situation for the NHL, and it is smart. This is the type of garbage that we should actually give Gary Bettman credit for, because he is a good tactician with stuff like this. It's a straight-up warning shot at Arizona. Logistically simple. Get your team together. We don't even, or else we're moving them, and we don't even need to change divisions. They're just going.
And Ryan Smith is more than happy to oblige, because he, scratches their backs, helps, improve his standing amongst the other owners and Gary Bettman. And he could potentially either have an expansion team where, we've seen great results from recent expansion teams, or he gets the Arizona Coyotes, who are very much on the up and up and would be an exciting team to cheer for in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, it's a fail-safe for an already bad situation, or a huge payday if that situation resolves itself. It's a no-lose situation for the NHL. And actually, I should mention, because in his release, they did make it a point to point out we have an arena ready to go right now while we build the giant one for the 2030 Olympics or whatever year it's going to be. Like, it's there. You put the Coyotes, we can put the Coyotes in Utah tomorrow if you want.
And it's not crazy to say that there's a universe where that might be what they have to do.
I would almost call that the most likely scenario at this point. We know they're hot to trot on expansion because the stupid Atlanta rumors keep getting leaked out, and the NHL tries to pretend everybody can't see exactly what they're doing on that one. But
I don't know that that's the NHL so much as certain insiders.
Stuff doesn't get out from the league unless they want it to.
You find trends in terms of who's delivering information, and sometimes you can understand who has connections where. Not to say Atlanta's not a serious location. It is. You're right, Brad. I think the league only lets it get that big if they're honestly considering it.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
They're gauging reaction.
Yeah. It's so many test balloons. And also for the NHL to have a statement in response within like 40 minutes is so funny because they may as well have just put out one statement. That's what they were doing. They were talking not to each other. They were talking to the public. And we know that. But the whole thing is just a lot of posturing. And the only heat here... No, this isn't an intentional joke. The only heat here is on Arizona. Like, they're the ones who are going to have to figure this out. I will want to say the clock's running out.
Why would you even want to be the owner? I mean, there's lots of reasons why you'd want to be an owner of a professional sports team, but...
Printing money is a good start.
Yeah, well, maybe not in Arizona.
Maybe not.
But, like, why would you want this team, right? Like, why would you want this added pressure? You got the league, the owners... which you're a colleague of, want this team moved or you removed as the owner. You're not making a lot of money. You've got all this uncertainty about an arena. Where, other than, passion, which doesn't, I don't know, I totally get that vibe.
No, it's not passion.
Yeah, like what's the point in holding on to this team?
Cash. Because if they figure it out, they print money.
Any money?
Because if they doesn't even have to be a good hockey team, and it doesn't even have to be in an area where they care about hockey.
I guess there's revenue sharing.
Dude, they professional sports more than ever are so lucrative.
That is true.
You just print money.
Yeah, but you don't have an arena. The gun is to your head to make a move or make a decision on an arena, and you still haven't figured it out. Like, that's high pressure. That's high stress. Like, you either figure it out or you don't, and it seems like Arizona would prefer to do neither.
Well, that to me is the biggest thing of this whole story. This is, as far as I'm concerned, reading between the lines, the first public acknowledgement, even though it's not, but it is, from Gary Bettman saying, all right, I'm ready to move on from Arizona.
It's a very roundabout way of saying it, yeah.
Yeah, he said, put out your statement. We're going to respond right away. We want everybody to know we have a backup solution right now. Mention the arena right now. Coyotes, get your crap together or you're playing in Utah next year. Like, he has defended the Phoenix metropolitan area probably more fervently than he would ever defend his own child. And this is the first Jenga block that has been pushed out.
You want to know what I think?
No.
The Atlanta, I know. Brad, do you want to know what I think?
Do you want my honest answer?
No, please. For the sake of my sanity, I need you to lie. Watching them flirt with the idea of going back to Atlanta, the NHL's only care here in terms of opening up new markets is what you alluded to. If you're a major metropolitan market and you're untapped in terms of hockey, they're going to go there eventually.
Yeah, this 36 is just by 2030 is your prediction, which I agree with. I think it might be a little fast, but you're on the right track. It's going to get up to 40 eventually.
I don't even.
Oh, God.
That makes me sick to think about.
But when it was an original 6, do you know how steadfast people were on that?
I know.
When the league was at 21 forever, do you think people were? It's just numbers.
We're going to be begging for a fourth line center, let alone a first line center.
You can go as deep as the talent pool will let you. And if you look at what's going on in the AHL right now, you can go deeper right now. And as minor hockey continues to grow, not in Canada, because that's not what matters here. We're always going to get here. But as minor hockey grows in the States and Europe and more non-traditional countries like Germany and Switzerland, it opens up the talent pool. And the bigger that talent pool gets, the more teams you can have and still produce a quality product. And again, if you can produce a quality product in 36 to 40 markets, Well, now you're making money off 36 to 40 markets. That's way better for the league.
And the point I was making is if they don't figure it out in Arizona now, like you just said, Brad, the league is only going to get bigger. They'll come back later.
Yeah, they could be the 38th team in the league. I don't care.
Because they were talking about that with Atlanta. It'll be the third time in Atlanta that they might go back there. Third. Yeah. If they have for them, figuring out Arizona finally or Utah right now is accomplishing the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. So you're obviously going to want to just play with the devil you know. But at that point, it's been a long, long time. Look, I don't want to see the Coyotes moved. I think it's...
the fans always lose in these situations.
But you got to figure something out. You can't... The fact that they're halfway through the Mullet Arena plan is shocking because when they first put out that plan, I'm like, 3 years, holy.
Half dead and they still don't have a solution.
And their hockey team's good. Their hockey team's good and they're only going to get better.
And they're not even selling out the Mullet, are they?
They've not been making money hand over fist, I'll tell you that.
Can't. It's smaller than the Kitchener Odd.
It's a disservice to the league, especially the NFL runs the roost right now. And there is not a single thing in the world of sports, I mean the entire world, that touches the revenue that the NFL brings in.
I think they said 51 million people watched the Bills-Chiefs game the other night.
Weird, I missed it.
The only Bills fan in here missed the game.
Yeah, no, I was unaware such a game was happening.
But when I saw that sort of number, it's just astonishing the chasm between the two, the NFL and the NHL, really is.
And it's no, the NHL is not expected to compete with the NFL, but if you have someone competing with that much of the pie, especially in America, you need to be winning some ground against the MLB, against the NBA, against the MLS. Formula One was getting bigger there for a second. I don't know. They're kind of petering out now. You can't be having a major market. One of the most preeminent sports markets in America right now is Phoenix. They're getting more attention in the world of golf. It's not just Florida anymore. People are figuring out Arizona is a great place to be for golf. You need to be making up ground against those other leagues. Otherwise, you're going to get swallowed up.
Well, one big thing in business in general, you look at Vegas recently, you don't necessarily have to be the best to gain a foothold and to be successful. You just have to be first.
Yeah. Vegas has been a revelation for them.
Yeah. The Golden Knights got into Vegas before the Athletics, before the Raiders, before everything else. It helps that they were good their first year, and they took over that town. Everybody who was saying, another Southern market's going to fail, absolutely wrong. Huge success story. Seattle, huge success story. There's no NBA team there, so they had the leg up there. In Utah right now, at the professional level, it's just the Jazz. That's their only thing they're competing against, and the same guy is going to own both teams. And then you want to talk about expanding further than that? Just be first.
Sounds like we need to go to Quebec City.
It would succeed. Nobody here is saying it wouldn't succeed. There's the whole corporate issue, but you tell me you put a half decent, a non-bottom 5 of the league team in Quebec City, they're not selling out every game? No chance.
Totally.
We should put 2 teams in Toronto.
But
unironically, they should.
But it's new US dollars versus Canadians who are going to pay for and watch hockey no matter what.
See, this is the one thing I kind of fight back on because I agree with the theory that you want to grow in the biggest markets in North America because it's more ad revenue. It's, more eyes. It's all the possibilities are endless, but yet somehow the NHL is still a predominantly gate-driven league. Go to the places you're going to sell tickets and then worry about the rest.
You know what would really help grow the sport of hockey if they had a best-on-best tournament at one of the biggest sporting events that happens once every 4 years.
Evan, shut the hell up, and we're not going that far outside of the box here, okay?
Best I can do is 4 countries.
One team of under 21-year-olds.
Now we're men of reason.
You know what? I was like, that was fun, but I want to see best on best. If they actually go through with this 4 nations thing, I want the team young players, like the young stars once again.
100%. Let's have Canada. No, we'll have team old of North America, team young of North America. Team some of Europe and then Team Scandinavia.
I have no interest in this.
Well,
nobody will. That's the problem with
the best we're gonna get for a while. Anyhow, this episode's kind of.
It's been a busy news week for the NHL.
It's been a lot. It's been a lot to the point where when Detroit played against Tampa Bay and they won, I was like, oh, that's going to be the tone for this episode. And it feels like a year has happened between now.
Yes.
Anyhow, let's talk about Corey Perry, who is signed for the Edmonton Oilers. Corey Perry, whose contract was terminated by the Chicago Blackhawks for something he did while he was drinking on the road, either at a team event or while the team was traveling, whatever it was. It involved a staff member of some sort. Those are the only confirmed details that are out. Obviously, the NHL, the Blackhawks, Kane, and the Oilers aren't revealing anymore. It came out after that. It initially looked like Perry was like, oh, that's it for Perry. Like, if it's bad enough where his contract was terminated, he's out. Well, then it came out that a lot of this was dictated by the fact that obviously Chicago has to play things completely like 100% above board and they can take zero risk for good reason. Whatever Perry did was presumably bad enough to have his contract terminated, although the NHLPA is going to be, or they're presumed to be challenging that to try and basically at the very least make sure that this isn't precedent setting, because as a union, you have to protect the players' contracts, no matter how unscrupulous or questionable their morals are. You need to, that's the NHLPA's job. And so even if Perry didn't want to go down that route, the NHLPA may very well push this to say, like, nope, there need to be clear definitions on what contract termination, what meets that sufficient standard. And if whatever happened met that, then great, but we think not, and thus you can't have done that. So you need to either have some kind of settlement or for the NHL or the team to agree that this isn't precedent setting and this is just a one-off. Anyhow, all that to say, Perry wasn't on any kind of can't return to the NHL list, was literally just a free agent. And so Edmonton, who's on a 14-game win streak, adds Corey Perry to their roster in the second half of the season.
The team that also already has Vander Kane.
Yeah, it's not a new move for them.
It's not a good look. You're on a 14-game winning streak. You didn't need him.
Well, at least we'll know now they'll make it to the Stanley Cup Finals and lose.
I think Oilers fans would take that.
The way this season started, yes.
Yeah, 100% they would.
Yeah, he'll be a valuable player to them on the ice. He wasn't having a halfway bad season on an awful team in Chicago, coming in at a league minimum contract. You understand the appeal.
Oh, totally.
The 200 hockey men, the old boys club, which Ken Holland is firmly in, they love a serial winner, which whether or not he's getting cups or not, he's getting through to the fourth round of the playoffs time after time after time. He's got gold medals. He's got a Stanley Cup. He's got a Hart Trophy. The resume of Corey Perry makes this move very, very obvious. But God, is it just such a bad look? Even if the incident isn't as bad as it was originally portrayed to be, it was still bad enough that Chicago went, yeah, no. So when, again, he was having a good year for them. He was doing exactly what they brought him in for, and they still went, this is serious enough. We have to cut you. This is a pretty damn quick turnaround. This was not even 2 months ago.
Kind of funny how fast it happened.
Yeah, it was super fast.
For a league where this isn't the NFL, like you don't just get cut. All your contracts are fully guaranteed. It's very hard to get out of them. It's very weird to see a player jump from team to team like that without a trade. Just two different contracts. Whatever he did, he cost himself a lot of money.
Maybe. We'll see if that appeal.
If he gets any kind of settlement.
Yeah, because it's worth remembering. Mike Richards had his contract terminated, and there was no debate about what he did, and it was serious.
I don't know who's those are, officer.
Evander Kane had his contract terminated, and there was no debate about what he did, and it was bad. And they both won their appeals and got some money back.
Yep.
So a substantial amount of money back. I think the LA Kings are still paying Mike Richards. And think of how long ago that was.
That's my dream.
Boy, do I tell you, all you have to do is...
So if Corey Perry chooses to appeal, there's a very strong likelihood he'll still be made whole. And all that was damaged was his reputation.
Yeah, people will forget that pretty quick.
Yeah, he didn't exactly have the most sterling reputation before, but that was from an on-ice standpoint.
I think
This is the classic, not the Hall of Good Guys conversation that we have how many times this season?
Don't idolize the people in the NHL.
If
There's a lot of good people in the NHL, but just you're better off not.
Yeah. If we're playing the odds here, like I don't like that spin on the roulette wheel.
people just want to see home runs.
Dingers! What is it? You want to know the horrifying truth?
Or do you want to see me sock some dingers?
There's a Simpsons quote for everything.
There really is.
All right. I feel like this episode is just one of those ones, other than me not being able to speak.
You just got to laugh or else you cry.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get into overtime. Overtime is brought to you by our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/wingedwheel podcast. If you want to join the Dub Club and support the show, you get benefits like access to our Patreon exclusive Discord. You're also automatically entered into all of our giveaways. We're giving away 2 tickets to every Detroit Red Wings home game, the vast majority going directly to Patreon supporters. As well, you get access to our overtime bonus episodes, which record right after these main ones. All of that and lots more. You allow us to support the Jamie Daniels Foundation. You allow us to host Winged Wheel podcast nights with the Detroit Red Wings and the Grand Rapids Griffins. Produce Expected by Whom, another show within our network hosted by Sean Shapiro and Prashant Iyer, and lots more. So again, patreon.com/winged wheel podcast. Let's take some questions from our patrons. Jake Jarvis says, has the excitement of Marco Kasper worn off? Despite his recent heater in Grand Rapids, there hasn't been much chatter on him. What do you think his upside is at this point, and when do you see him being a full-time Red Wing?
It's the thing with prospects, you never know, because my opinion on what was going on with Marco Kasper even a month ago to now has changed, and that will likely be the same thing for the next year. It's an ever-evolving topic. Right now, the best case scenario in my mind for Marco Kasper, JT Compher. What's probably the most likely? Joe Veleno. Reality, I don't know, I'll say most likely, but I'll say on the, lower end of the likely spectrum. What's probably going to end up happening is somewhere in between.
Yeah, I would say coming into the season, you thought if he has a good camp, he could potentially make some noise on the Red Wings roster. You're obviously disappointed with how, at the very least, his start to the season in Grand Rapids has panned out. Didn't really kick down any doors. Looked to still need a lot of adjustment time. If he continues to produce at this pace, I think a lot of the hesitation from early season will wash away. The questions when you drafted Kasper of, what his offense could be, those are going to be what you need him to answer to define what his ceiling is. Because the way he plays the game, the way he grinds, how he works, that presumably won't change. But there's a difference between, fourth line grinder, third line guy to someone who could potentially be in your middle six and produce from time to time. Also, remember that these aren't all 4th overall picks, right? Like, just because they were Detroit's first pick and we're used to them picking high, like, you can't expect the world from all of these guys, but they're still a top 10 pick.
We've talked ad nauseum. It's all about the probabilities. Some guys will pan out. Some guys won't. Guys you think will pan out, don't. Guys you don't think will, do.
Yeah.
It's how it works. So thankfully we drafted the same basic prototype of a player back-to-back years in the top 10. So one of Danielson and Kasper will solve a big problem, statistically speaking.
You'd hope.
If not, oh no.
Dan Bell says, hey guys, anyone else remember or sometimes forget that Husso plays for the Wings? With Line playing so well and Reimer also doing what he needs, does it seem that Husso is actually the trade piece, especially with the goalie prospects the Wings have? Line got pulled from the Dallas game. We didn't even mention that, and it was kind of a mercy. Reimer came in. Didn't have to make too many saves, but Line wasn't winning them that game, but Detroit also wasn't doing him any favors. And when they pulled him and Reimer was coming in, I went, oh boy. If Detroit's hanging their goalies out to dry and they have Reimer in for the third, that might get worse. Thankfully, Detroit kind of got back on track. But I'm curious to see what happens when Husso gets healthy, because if he can factor in, then I think he's a better goalie than what he showed at the start of the year.
In terms of trade chip in net, the Red Wings don't have one right now. They're in a playoff race. Lion's the number 1. You're not trading him. Husso's an unknown who's hurt, who's been streaky, and has an extra year on his contract. Nobody's touching that. And James Reimer's terrible. Nobody's touching that. This might just be one of those situations. It is what it is.
I think if Reimer puts together a little stretch of games like he did at the start of the season, some team will give something up for him. So, not anything of consequence.
You are correct, but I got 2 questions for you on that. Is Reimer going to get a stretch of games in which he's able to? And 2, if he does, do you have any confidence in him actually playing well in that stretch of games? It's one of those things. Theoretically, could it happen? Absolutely. What's the probability of that?
It all depends on what Eisman's saying on the phone. Like, hey, whatever, GM, Bob, we're calling up Brogan Rafferty every night. The goalie's not working with too much in front of him.
Yeah.
He's better than what you can see here. That's the best.
He's basically got to turn into Saul Goodman on the phone, honestly.
They're not going to be able to sell. If they do sell Reimer, it'll be for a whisper, a 6th, maybe, whatever it is.
Yeah, because, again, this is always the litmus test. If you put him on waivers right now, is he getting claimed? The answer is no.
No. AJ Voss says Dylan Larkin has 43 points in 41 games, while Tyler Bertuzzi has 20 and 45, and Anthony Mantha has 21 and 41. Was the MLB line carried by Larkin more than we realized at the time?
Apparently.
I think we knew it was largely carried by Larkin, though.
Maybe not to this extent.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we knew who was driving that bus.
Dungeon Master of Puppets says we've seen beautiful Griffins jerseys that pay homage to the Red Wings. How would you design a Wings jersey to pay homage to the Griffins?
Oh, I just love the Griffins color scheme. Just make a Red Wings jersey with those colors, and you'd be hard-pressed to go wrong.
Purple.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, do the Jurassic Park Red Wings jersey. You just want a purple jersey overall.
Just give me a purple jersey.
Yeah. Jack's dad says, I jumped on the Kane train when the rumor mill started heating up, putting him in Detroit. The big knock on him was he was a defensive liability. Given how much he has the puck on his stick in the ozone possession time with him on the ice, can we really say that? Isn't the best defense a good offense? Also, would you have made a play for Perry?
Yes, having the puck is good. No, I would not have made a play on Perry. Wouldn't have even made a pass at him.
First of all, he's not one of the all-time American great players, so already out of the conversation.
Yeah, we talked about this on a recent episode. Kane's been better. His defensive metrics have been good, not because he is like Miro Heiskanen out there or anything, but just because he has the puck on his stick and he can generally contribute to offense happening. That's going to keep the puck away from the other team's offense, and your defensive metrics are going to be better for it. So that's been, I think, a little bit of a difference compared to previous season and before for Kane, where his defensive metrics really fell off. But as long as his hip was really bothering him, his offense wasn't going to be as good. He wouldn't be able to control the puck as much, and so we're seeing something better here. The Mexanadian says, theoretically, who would you trade for from Ottawa at the deadline?
Oh, we got access to the whole team. Tim Stützle.
I'll take Chychrun.
Does Jake Sanderson shoot left or right, or does it even matter?
Doesn't matter, and he shoots left.
Okay.
Yeah. Stützle, Chychrun, Sanderson. You'll take anything. Ottawa's too good. Like, their players are too good for them to be this bad. That's what's funny about them.
They're the inverse of they're greater than the sum of their parts.
Yes. Less than the sum of their parts. Anyhow, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast. Folks, if you're going to be at Winged Wheel Podcast night with the Grand Rapids Griffins this weekend, we're excited to see you. You should have information in your inbox from the Griffins. If not, just reach out to us or the email on the link where you got your tickets. We're extremely pumped. We'll be back with you with our next episode on Monday, so it'll be delayed a day. We'd like to thank all of you so much for tuning in. Whether you're a new listener or old, it means a lot that you listen to the show. Thanks for bearing with us on days where the news is kind of all over the place. Hopefully on Monday, there'll be a little bit more structure and a couple Wings wins to talk to you about. But for now, we'd like to thank all of our patrons, especially our name level supporters on Patreon. Arjun Shankar, Yves Bartels on behalf of the Sarah Grand Foundation, Aikfer, Samuel Soderholm, Icon, Brad's Lord and Savior, Bradley Cleveland, Glenn Brabham, Croner's Left Knee, Ashley Van Conant, Sea Lion, Keenan O'Donohue, Yanni Burgers, Meals on Wheels, Matthew M. Rice, Admiral Matt S. at the Cheesebag Navy, Brad Shin Extensions, Baggins, Carl, Britannia Naluski, Carl Provy, Citizen High Five, Clip Clop Nene, Connor Scovey, Craig Kibble, Daddy Bettman Bucks, Denny's Gamer Girl, Derek Enstam, DJ Denton, Drop the Gloves, Eric Shun, GOD Creatives, Give Blood Fight Probert, Hockeytown Love, Hockeytown Matt, Hassam Al-Qassem, Jay Gollum, Jacob Turner, Joel Miranda, Jonathan Miller, Kalen Wood, Marcus, Marlon Winchester, Matt K. Cannon Fodder, the Cheesebag Army, Matt McKay, Michael Edlund, R.A., Red Feather Desert Dogs, Ryan Hubbard, Scott Martin, Scree and Lube, Sprong 88 the best. That's what I appreciate about you. Wallman's Elite Dancing D, Wing Commander DeBrincat, brand new name level supporter. Welcome to the Dub Dub Club. Eyes are Plan Stan, General Andy Bohan of the Cheesebag Army, Sam Bankson, AB, Adam Rose, Axel Sandy Pelika, Bellingham, Acid Balls, Big Cheese, Brad Simmons, Brian Vasha, Chuck Buffchest, the Tarpless Goon, Commander Ben Barron of the Cheesebag Space Force, Connor Leighton, Corey Prida, Darren Fick, D-Boss Snip Show, Derek James, Dungeon Master of Puppets, Frank Stanley, Gene Sullivan, Griffey Boy, James Laporte, James Pridemore, Jeremiah Adobo, JM Rhapsody, John Evans Derogatory, John Engels, Josh Yelton, Kevin McCracken, Quaz, Les Grossman's Ungodly Firestorm, Linda Hull, Maximilian, Melissa Erickson, Norris Seider, Ophelia, Reed, Steven, the Hodag, the Mexinadian, the Hat123. These lines are unreal. Winging it in San Diego, ex-formerly AA Ron, and your second favorite patron. Thank you all so very much. Go Lions.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockey Town Evan.